Okay, so we know there's this incredibly close, incredibly contentious election going on to be President of the United States of America, and there's a lot of excitement on both sides. But there's one group of people that isn't exactly blown away by either candidate, and that's economists. So today we're going to look at some of the economic proposals of both Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris, and talk about why they have some economists anxious. Now, the name of the game so far on both sides has been economic populism, and that makes sense. There's a lot of Americans out there at wit's end with this economy. Take something that costs $100 in 2020. On average, that exact same good is going to cost $123 today. So yeah, that's a good reason for Americans to be mad. The problem with economic populism is you're promising these benefits to different groups, but you're really only attacking the symptoms of the problems. I mean, yeah, maybe you put a little bit of cash in people's pocket, but you're not addressing the root causes of what's wrong with the American economy. Great example of this is childcare. You have folks from the Trump campaign that have hinted that they would offer a child tax credit of $5,000. Hey, for parents, that sounds great, right? That's $5,000. Then here comes Kamala Harris's campaign, and they suggest that they might offer a child tax credit of $6,000. Hey, $6,000, that's even better than $5,000, right? The problem is, neither of these plans are doing anything to address the absolutely bonkers cost of raising a child right now in the United States of America. And this is really what we're seeing from both sides right now. Some nice shiny policies that might look great to families that need a buck or two, but really not offering a comprehensive platform for the American economy moving forward. All right, now let's start with Trump. Basically, anytime Trump talks about the economy, he brings it back to his plan for tariffs. He wants a 10% tariff on all U.S. imports and up to 60% tariffs on imports from China. The idea is make foreign stuff more expensive so people buy more American-made stuff. And Trump believes this is the key to kickstart jobs and commerce in the United States. Problem is, Americans buy a lot of stuff abroad. Just in July of this year, the United States imported $350 billion worth of goods. And if tariffs make selling those goods more expensive for international producers, you better believe that they're going to be passing along some of those costs to American consumers, which is to say, higher prices, which is to say, inflation. You ever have a friend visit you from Brazil or Argentina and they want to buy like 8 iPhones and bring them back for people at home? Why would they do that? They do it because Brazil and Argentina are high tariff countries. And that means that iPhone, an American product, is much more expensive back in Buenos Aires. Would those tariffs help American producers? Maybe. But again, history offers a few warning signs. Brazil in the 1970s used tariffs to protect their auto industry. The idea was protection against competition, let Brazil's industry grow. But the result was poor quality products that were overpriced. Also, don't forget, if you're an American manufacturer, you probably still need to import parts, like for a car, and those parts are going to get hit with that stiff tariff. So even if you're producing in the United States, you're going to see costs go up. And then, if we hit countries with tariffs, they're going to hit us right back. And that's going to make it harder for American manufacturers to export their goods. Trump's other proposals, no tax on tips, no tax for overtime work. I mean, yeah, that's great if you happen to be in those groups, but that's not really a comprehensive economic plan. And it's going to increase the national debt, right? Remember that? In 2023, it was 123% of GDP. It's also worth mentioning that Trump repeatedly has said the president should have a say in U.S. interest rates. Most economists agree that politicizing the Federal Reserve is like a 5-alarm bad idea. This is exactly how you turn your central bank into a printing press and undermine faith in your currency. So how about Kamala Harris? Unfortunately, we're not really getting a complete vision of what she's calling an opportunity economy. Let's start with one policy that's been particularly troubling for a lot of economists, and that's this idea of taxing unrealized capital gains. This is really a new idea of taxing gains on stocks before someone has even sold the stock or received any kind of profit. Now, to be fair, Harris has said this policy would only apply to very wealthy Americans. I mean, we're talking like 10,000 people. And you can understand why these extremely rich Americans have been gaming the system. What they're doing is they're receiving their compensation as stocks, which they're not cashing out. And instead, they're borrowing money from banks at very low interest rates using their stocks as collateral. So they're essentially paying themselves with these lines of credit that don't appear as income and thus go untaxed. We can agree that's not fair, right? But then the policy needs to attack that practice, and that's not really what it does. So you got to remember, in the United States, where we really don't have a pension system anymore, where the cost of university is through the roof, wide swaths of the American middle class rely on the stock market for retirement, to send their kid to college, to make a down payment on a house. Harris is asking them to trust her to redefine unrealized capital gains. That's asking a lot. And in this very close election, where Republicans are doing everything they can to paint her as some crazy left-wing San Francisco radical, it was kind of a bizarre choice for her to lead with this niche, unusual policy proposal. Other Harris ideas are kind of like Trump ideas. They're attacking symptoms and not the problem. She's proposed $25,000 for first-time home buyers. Well, that's nice if you're a first-time home buyer, but it's not addressing the underlying crisis of housing affordability in America. She says she wants to limit price gouging at the supermarket. Hey, that sounds good, right? But again, we just have to look at Latin America in the 1980s and 1990s, where price controls led to shortages and, ironically, inflation. So look, it's election season, which can sometimes be silly season in terms of politicians making promises, especially regarding the economy. Most of them never come to fruition. But if you're looking for a solid plan to get the American economy back on track, to address key issues like the cost of childcare, housing, groceries, the future of work, well, you really haven't been given a whole lot to work with in this election cycle, at least not yet. But we'll be watching very closely as we head down the stretch here at the Bertelsmann Foundation.
Money is the thing that I'm talking about.